All right, Numbers chapter 16, and we're going to continue in our series called Counting the Cost. I'm free to move about now, right? All right. Counting the cost. What price are you willing to pay for a victorious Christian life? Now, you've been hearing this series title for a while now. I think this is the 22nd message in our series or so. And so I think repetition can be very helpful. Repetition can be very educational, but it can also get to the point where you hear the same thing you've heard many times and you just kind of let it go in one ear and out the other. So this morning, I want to take just a minute and I wanted you to really think about that question. Okay, our series is Counting the Cost. The book of Numbers is about the children of Israel. It's titled Numbers because the children of Israel, at the very beginning, they started out doing a count. Let's count. Let's see what we've got. Let's see how many fighting men we have. What is that indicative of? That we're about to fight some battles. You know, we're getting ready to enter into the promised land, a place of blessing, a place of prosperity, a place of promise, right? But it's not like it's going to be all sunshine and lollipops. There are going to be battles. There are going to be hurdles. There are going to be struggles. Now that place of blessing, that promised land is it's the place also of victory. It's the place where God wants them. And so it's symbolic. We're using it as a metaphor of victorious Christian living for you and for me. The place where God wants you, the place where God is going to bless you, the place where you will experience victory is also a place where you will face struggle, where you will face battles, where you will have to overcome hurdles. Speaking of Brother Lance and still having it, he tried to overcome a hurdle once when he was in elementary school. It was a college NCAA level hurdle, which is pretty tall, especially for a third grader. We were in third grade. Man, he was brave. And he just leapt head first over that hurdle. He gave it all he got. He made it over. His arm just couldn't handle the stress. And he snapped his radius and ulna. It was awesome. It was awesome because his arm suddenly had the shape of the Charlie Brown sweater stripe, you know, the up, down, up, down, up, down. He stood up, I think I broke my arm. I was like, yeah, you sure did. Let's go get Coach Davis. We need to do something about this. So that was exciting. But, there are always going to be hurdles. There are going to be things that you have to overcome in life. And so counting the cost is about you considering, what price are you willing to pay? How important to you is living a victorious Christian life? Remember, salvation is not simply a get-out-of-hell-free card. When you're leading someone to Christ, it shouldn't just be you asking them, you don't want to go to hell, right? I mean, that's a valid question. I don't know about you, but I don't want to go to hell. I certainly didn't want to go to hell when I got saved. That's part of the reason I got saved. But being a Christian is also about following Christ. So what price are you willing to pay? So here we are in the children of Israel in Numbers chapter 16, continuing in our series. And Israel counted the cost, and guess what? Here's a generation of God's chosen people who decided they weren't willing to pay the price. So the first part of the study of Numbers was about preparation. The second part was about moving forward. Guess what this part's about? Falling down. Falling down. It is likely in your Christian walk, in your pursuit of victorious Christian life, that you will fall down. Remember this, when you fall down, there's always an opportunity to stand back up. There's always an opportunity to stand back up. So here we are. And I'm just going to read the first 3 verses by way of introduction in this passage, and we'll cover the rest of the passage as we go along this morning. Numbers chapter 16, I'm going to start reading in verse 1. Please follow along. Now this is after the the spy report in chapter 14, and as Moses and Aaron watched their nation and their hopes and dreams and their prospects crumble before their eyes in Numbers 15, and then of course the people tried to reject Moses and Aaron, and they tried to go back to Egypt, and once again Moses had to stand in the gap for God's people and ask God to show him grace and mercy, and God did, but he said, this generation is not even going to so much as set eyes on this land that I promised them. And so he's already promised that they're going to spend the next 40 years wandering around in the wilderness until that whole generation had died. But he also promised, we talked about God's grace, God's graciousness last week. He also promised that their children and their children's children, they would come into the land. God would bless them, and God would help them, and God would give them the things that this generation had rejected. So all of that has just transpired, okay? We pick up in verse 1. Now, Korah. Who's Korah? The son of Izhar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi. The Levites are the priests. The Levites are the people who do the work of the ministry. That's their whole life is given to that. If you remember, the Kohathites Kohath was one of the sons of Levi, and the Kohathites were given the responsibility of carrying the ark and carrying the altar of burned offerings and carrying the table of showbread. All of the furniture, all of the implements of worship, they carried it. And if you also remember, the Merarites and the Gershonites, they were given wagons to carry their burdens. Some of them were supposed to carry all the tent coverings, and then the other was to carry all of the structure of the tent, of the tabernacle, right? So they were given wagons to carry those very heavy burdens. But the Kohathites were given the task of carrying their burdens on their shoulders. They were carrying it with their own strength, right? So it was a particularly special role in God's work, okay? So Korah is one of those Kohathites. So he has a place of honor. He has a place of spiritual leadership. He has a place of spiritual responsibility, all right? So this man is a known man. This man is someone who probably people look up to. People see him as a godly man. People see him as a spiritual man. People see him as a leader, okay? Just to give you a little context. So it says Korah, the son of Izhar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, and Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On, the son of Pelet, the son of Reuben. So one Levite, one priest, and his buddies, who were Reubenites, okay? Not priests. They took men, it says there. So Korah and Dathan and Abiram took men, and so they gathered a group, right? They gathered a following. We could say it like this: they gathered a mob, right? We're familiar with that today, aren't we? So we got some ringleaders, and we've got a small mob. It says, verse 2, and they rose up before Moses with certain of the children of Israel. How big was the mob? 250 princes of the assembly. Famous in the congregation. These are influencers. These are movers and shakers. These are people who are well known. They are all influential men. They are all leaders. They are all individuals that the children of Israel look up to and look to for leadership. Right? So they didn't just gather any mob. Right? They gathered men who were like them. Men who had influence like they had. And they said, hey, I've got something I want to talk to you about. And it's about Moses and Aaron. Can I tell you something? This isn't really a major point in the message this morning. But if someone takes you aside and they want to have a private conversation with you about me, you should probably just take that person by the hand and say, let's go talk to preacher about this. That would probably be a good idea. That's probably what these 250 men, each of them individually, because they probably didn't gather them all at once. They probably went one by one and gathering a following. They took men, they gathered a following, and they rose up before Moses with certain of the children of Israel, 250 princes of the assembly, famous in the congregation, men of renown. And they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron, and said unto them, Ye take too much upon you. Who do you think you are? They said to Moses and to Aaron. It's an interesting question because if you were to ask Moses, just in a private conversation, who do you think you are, Moses? He would have said, I'm nobody. I'm nobody. What do you think you're capable of, Moses? I can't do anything. Obviously, I can't do anything right. Look how this has gone so far. I mean, a lot of leaders are self-deprecating, and they have a lot of self-doubt, and they beat themselves up in the quiet of the night and in their own home. And yet, here these men are confronting God's chosen leaders. And they say, Ye take too much upon you, seeing all the congregation are holy. We're all God's children. We can all read our Bibles. I know just as much about the Bible as you do, preacher. Probably so. Matter of fact, you probably know more. Maybe. All the congregation are holy. Every one of them. And the Lord is among them. I have the Holy Spirit as much as you do, preacher. Probably, yes, sir. I hope so. I hope so. Wherefore then lift ye up yourselves above the congregation of the Lord. The title of the message this morning is The Enemy Within. The enemy within. Obviously, we're talking about the children of Israel and that there was an enemy among them within the camp, right? And this enemy has reared its ugly head. But the same holds true for us as individuals. There is an enemy within of which we must all beware. Father, please bless the reading of your word. Give me power to preach. Give everyone ears to listen. And glorify yourself in this time this morning. In Jesus' name, amen. Turn with me to 1 Samuel. Hold your place here in number 16 because we have many passages, many verses to cover. But turn with me to 1 Samuel chapter 15 very fast. I want to talk about this enemy that I described for you. 1 Samuel chapter 15, this enemy is described very graphically in the life of Saul, the first king of Israel. And this is Samuel speaking in verse 22. 1 Samuel 15, we'll read just verses 22 and 23. And Samuel said, Hath the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? He says, Behold, look, understand this. To obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. You know what God would rather have you do than give him a whole real fancy offerings? He'd rather have you listen to him. Now, this isn't either or. But if we have to choose either or, one is more important than the other. One is more important than the other. Verse 23. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and adultery. Because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, he hath also rejected thee from being king. In the life of Israel, back in our text in Numbers, the enemy who was within, the enemy who was engaging in this act of rebellion was a man named Korah and his friends, Dathan and Abiram. Here in 1 Samuel, however, we see a demonstration of this principle in the individual, as we all might have to face this enemy. And that enemy is the heart and act of rebellion, which resides inside every one of us. That enemy is in all of us. It was in the camp in Israel. It was in the heart of Saul, and it is in you, and it is in me. And that heart and that behavior is truly your enemy. In our culture, and probably in all cultures, in our time, and probably in all times, the only culture and time I'm aware of is my own, though. In many cases, the heart and act of rebellion is sort of idolized, right? If you're a rebel, you're seen as powerful, and you're seen as intriguing and interesting, and you're a real maverick, you know. You're so impressive, and so people they want to go against the grain, and they want to go against the crowd, and they just want to be different. They want to be a rebel. And rebelliousness and the act of rebelling against authority and against structure in our culture has become the ideal behavior. We see that reflected all over the place in cities all across America. People rebelling against authority, people rebelling against the law, people rebelling against our cultural structures, and they are applauded. Yay, good for you. You're so awesome. You're such a rebel. And we see that behavior and that attitude also encouraged and lauded in our children. If you let your children spend too much time being influenced by media, understand this: they're being told that rebellion is a good thing. That's what they're being told. And they will be applauded, and they will be congratulated, and they will be patted on the back, and they will be given a loving and warm hug if they ever act in direct rebellion against you. They absolutely will. But what we need to understand is that rebellion is the enemy, particularly that rebellion is an enemy of victory in your life. The point of this whole passage, the point of this whole series is talking about counting the cost. What are you willing to pay for victorious Christian living? And if you ever want to come to a place where you are experiencing victorious Christian living, you're saved, you're born again, but you're struggling. You're like the children of Israel, wandering around in the wilderness, wondering when something's going to happen. If you ever want to leave that place and go to the place of victory, you need to understand, in our passage this morning, that rebellion is the enemy of your victory. It is the enemy. It must be avoided at all cost. Now, we're going to look at three portions of our passage, three sections in this passage, and see three reasons why we can see clearly that rebellion is the enemy of your victory. The first thing I want to show you is this. In verses 1 to 15, rebellion is the enemy of victory because it creates conflict in your life. Rebellion is the enemy of victory, number one, because it creates conflict, and even more specifically, it creates conflict with those who you love the most, and with those who love you the most. Rebellion is the enemy of your victory because it will create conflict with those who love you the most. Again, in our passage, we saw the act of rebellion against Moses and Aaron. Look at verse 4. And when Moses heard it, he fell upon his face. That's very characteristic of Moses, isn't it? Every time the people have murmured against him, and every time the people have cried out against him, and every time the people have cried out against the Lord and cried out to say, let's go back to Egypt. Why have you brought us into this wilderness? Why have you brought us here to die? And why have you brought us here to starve to death? Or why have you brought us here to die of thirst? Whatever the complaint was, every single time, what did Moses do? He fell on his face. He prostrated himself before the people. He humbled himself before the people. And he cried out to them, please don't do this. Don't make this decision. Listen, parents, listen, anybody who's got influence in someone's life, have you ever found yourself in a place where you are just crying out to this person who you love because you see them going in a direction that's going to destroy them, and you see them making choices that are going to destroy their life and are going to destroy the lives of people around them, and you say, please don't make that decision. Please don't take that path. That's what Moses is doing here. He fell down before them. It says he fell upon his face and he spake. He didn't scream. He didn't yell. He didn't act irrationally. It says he spake unto Korah and to all his company, saying, even tomorrow the Lord will show who are his and who is holy, and will cause him to come near unto him. Even him whom he hath chosen will he cause to come near unto him. He says, listen, let's go to God. You know, don't act in rebellion. Don't cause a schism among God's people. Let's not fight. Let's just ask God. Let's go to God. Let's be rational. Let's be reasonable. Let's let God settle this dispute. He says, this do. Take you censers, Korah and all his company, and put fire therein, and put incense in them. Now remember, Korah's a priest, and it was the job of the priests to bring the incense before the Lord. It was a form or a type of prayer, a form or a type of service, a type of offering to God. And he says, put incense in them before the Lord tomorrow, and it shall be that the man whom the Lord doth choose, he shall be holy. Set apart, right? Chosen for this job. What job? The job of being in charge, the job of being the leader, right? The man. And that's what they've done. They've come to Moses and said, who do you think you are? Why are you in charge? I'm just as spiritual as you are. I could make better choices than you're making. Who put you on the throne? Who made you king? Well, the answer to that question is God did. Remember the last statement he made in verse 3? Wherefore then lift ye up yourselves. That is the exact opposite of what happened. Moses and Aaron didn't go looking for this. As a matter of fact, Moses did everything in his power to run from it. He ran from it for 40 years. But God wouldn't let him run. And so here he is in this place that God has called him to, in a place into which God had placed him. And these people say to him, why lift ye up yourselves above the congregation of the Lord? So Moses says, all right, let's go to God. Let's let God decide. Ye take, and listen what he says here. It shall be that the man that the Lord doth choose, he shall be holy. Listen what he says. Kind of throws their words back at them. Ye take too much upon you, ye sons of Levi. You've asked me who I think I am. Who do you think you are? Who gave you the authority to cause this trouble? Who gave you the authority to cause this division? Who gave you the authority to lead in this schism among God's people? Who do you think you are? And Moses said unto Korah, hear, I pray you, ye sons of Levi. You sons of Levi. Seemeth it but a small thing unto you that the God of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel, to bring you near to himself to the service of the tabernacle of the Lord, and to stand before the congregation and minister unto them? You know, you're wanting to take my position, but hasn't God given you a position? Hasn't God given you a ministry? Are you too good for what God has called you to? Are you unwilling to use the gifts God has given you in the service of the Lord? You know, why are you seeking someone else's role? Why are you seeking someone else's position? Why are you attempting to usurp someone else's authority when God has already given you a place, and God has given you a role, and God has already given you authority? He says, and he hath brought thee near to him, and all thy brethren and sons of Levi with thee, and ye seek the priesthood also. That's Aaron's role. He was the high priest. For which cause both thou and all thy company are gathered together against the Lord. And what is Aaron that ye remember against him? Why have you turned against Aaron? God chose him and put him in a place just like God chose you and put you in a place. All of us are nobody. That's the answer. Who are you? You're nobody. Who am I? I'm nobody. But God chose us, and God gave us a role. And yet these men are fighting him. And Moses sent to call Dathan and Abiram. Remember, they're Korah's best buddies, right? It kind of puts me in mind for the campers here. You remember Brother Herring, his message about David's son. What was his name? Amnon, right? Remember, and Amnon, he had some bad ideas and he had some bad appetites. But then, you know, the most dangerous thing in his life, remember what it was? Amnon had a friend named Jonadab. You know, I think that puts me in mind of Dathan and Abiram. They're just like Jonadab. Korah had some friends. Korah, maybe they were sitting around the table drinking some tea and eating some pizza rolls, or drinking some Kickstart, eating some pizza rolls. He said, you know, and maybe it was Dathan. Dathan said, you know, Korah, you preach better than Moses. You know that? He's so quiet. Man, if he could just put some passion, like you have all kinds of passion. Abiram was like, yeah. And you know what? You're a better leader than Moses. Why does Moses get to be the leader? You know, and Korah said, you know what? You're right. I am a better preacher than Moses, and I think I would make better choices than Moses. And Dathan and Abiram like, yeah, you do, and yeah, you would. You go, Korah, yeah. Let's go. We'll go with you. Let's get some other people first, though. So Moses calls out Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, he says, yeah, hey, you guys come up here too, in front of all the congregation. You know what they said? We will not come up. No, thank you. We're staying right here. Then they said this, is it a small thing that thou hast brought us up out of the land that floweth with milk and honey? Are you listening to this? Do you hear this? The nerve of these guys? What did they say to him? You brought us up out of the land of Egypt so that we'll die in this wilderness. We're going to die of hunger. We're going to die of thirst. And then they get to the land and they're like, we don't want to go. There's giants in the land. Right? And so God's going to destroy all of them. And Moses says, God, don't do it. God, be merciful. God, be gracious. That's the kind of God you are. And God says, you know what, Moses, you're right. I'll be merciful. I'll be gracious. And then the next day, Dathan and Abiram said, what kind of leader are you? You took us away from the promised land. I did what? I did no such thing. They're blaming him for this now. They're blaming him that they're going back into the wilderness instead of going into the promised land. Is it a small thing that thou hast brought us up out of the land that floweth with milk and honey, to kill us in this wilderness? Actually, God did that. Again, they're not angry at Moses. They're angry at God. When you're attacking God's man, you're really attacking God. Okay? Except thou make thyself altogether a prince over us. This is just a power trip for you, isn't it, Moses? Moreover, thou hast not brought us into a land that floweth milk and honey. You didn't keep your promise. Or given us inheritance of fields and vineyards. Wilt thou put out the eyes of these men? Like, what are you going to do? You're going to put out their eyes? I'm not going up there. You're power hungry, man. You're on a power trip. I don't trust you. I'm not going up there. Listen to this. This is a very stark verse here, verse 15. And Moses was very wroth. I don't think those words have been said about Moses since the day he slew the guard who was beating one of his brethren. I don't think that's been said about Moses since that day. Something snapped in Moses. He became wroth. Listen what he says to God here. This is uncharacteristic of Moses. Listen what he says. And he said unto the Lord, Moses was very wroth, and Moses said unto the Lord, respect not thou their offering. Remember he had just suggested to Korah, all your guys and me and Moses and Aaron, everybody will take and get a censer and put some incense in there and light it and bring it as an offering before the Lord tomorrow. And whoever the Lord chooses, that person will be holy. That person will be set apart. That person will be the spiritual leader of the children of Israel. Now Moses, he's like, oh. He says, God, don't listen to their offering. Don't listen to their prayer. Don't accept their offering. Listen what he says. I have not taken one ass from them, neither have I hurt even one of them. I haven't done a thing to these people. I've done nothing but help them. I've done nothing but pray for them. I've done nothing but try to be a blessing to them. And here they accuse me of being the problem? Moses has had enough. What did I say? Number one, rebellion is the enemy of your victory because it will create conflict with those who love you the most. Moses has proven he is the most humble and meek, one of the most humble and meek men to ever lead a nation. And he finally reaches a breaking point with these people. At the beginning of the passage, he starts out in his normal pattern. Verse 4, he humbles himself. He abases himself. He pleads with the people. And verse 9, he reasons with them. But then in verse 15, this heart of rebellion is more than he can take. Moses has stood in the gap for these people. Moses has offered to sacrifice himself for these people. God has offered to do away with these people. It says, Moses, I'll start all over with you. We'll make a whole new nation just out of you. Wouldn't have been breaking his promises to the patriarchs. Moses is one of their seed. And Moses said no. Moses has proven over and 4 times now God's offered to kill them all and start over with Moses? And every single time Moses says, no, Lord, let's be gracious, let's be merciful, let's think about how this would look to the heathen. And God says, that's right, Moses, good job. Because God's a gracious God, he's a merciful God. But now Moses is even Moses Even the one who has sacrificed everything. Even the one who has stood in the gap for these people time and time and time again. Moses says, don't listen to them anymore, God. Give them what they deserve. Rebellion is not your friend. Rebellion is not a good thing. Because rebellion will even create conflict with those who love you the most. Rebellion will draw out anger and bitterness from the people that God has put in your life who will otherwise be gracious and patient with you. It'll create schisms in your family. It'll create divisions in marriages. It'll create divisions in churches. Rebellion is the enemy of your victory because it creates conflict with those who love you the most. When we think about this, we think about parents and children probably most readily. I want to bring it to the church level, though, before I move on to the second point. Hebrews 13:17 says this. Obey them that have the rule over you. He's talking to a church. Okay? And he says, obey them that have the rule over you. He's talking about pastors. And submit yourselves. For they watch for your souls as they that must give an account. Do you understand that the role that a pastor fills in your life, that he has to give an account to God for how he fills that role? He has to answer to God on an extra level, above and beyond what you have to answer to God for. Okay? So he says here, understand what's at stake for this man who is giving his life to this church. Listen to this. So that they, the pastors, may do it with joy and not with grief. We can see in Moses' life, leadership is not always a joy. Leadership is often full of grief. And through the Holy Spirit of God, here in the book of Hebrews, the writer says, don't make your pastor's leadership over you be a thing of grief for him. Let it be a matter of joy for him. Why? For that is unprofitable for you. You know what he's saying? If you rebel against the leadership that God has put in your life, if you rebel against God's authority in your life, you're only hurting yourself. You're hurting them too, but in the end, you're not helping yourself. You're hurting yourself because it creates conflict with those who love you most. Number two. So number one, rebellion is the enemy of victory because it creates conflict with those who love you most. Number two, rebellion is the enemy of victory because it evokes judgment from the God who redeemed you. Your God loves you. Listen to me, brothers and sisters. If you're a child of God, if you are born again, God has already proven how much He loves you. He proved it. He demonstrated it by giving His Son to die on the cross of Calvary. Horrible, painful, dehumanizing death. And He did it for you because He loves you. That God who redeemed you from your sin, He wants nothing but the best for you. And He does not want to chastise you. He does not want to pour out judgment and wrath upon you. That's the opposite of what He wants to do. But, as the Bible tells us in the book of Galatians, be not deceived. God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. And rebellion is not your friend. Rebellion is your enemy because it always evokes judgment from the God who redeemed you. Look at verses 16 to 35. So Moses just gets done saying, God, don't listen to him. God, don't accept their offering. And Moses said unto Korah, be thou and all thy company before the Lord, thou and they and Aaron tomorrow. And take every man his censer and put incense to them. He's repeating this now after he's just prayed to God and said, God, don't listen to him. So he's kind of setting them up for it, isn't he? Put incense in them and bring ye before the Lord every man his censer, 250 censers. Thou also and Aaron, each of you his censer. And they took every man his censer. This is the next day now. And they put fire in them and laid incense thereon and stood in the door of the tabernacle of the congregation with Moses and Aaron. Listen to this. And Korah, see, remember he already has his mob, 250 men, and his two buddies who hide behind the corner. They put him up to it, maybe, but they don't want to stand with him. So he's already got this mob of leaders. Listen to what it says here. And Korah gathered all the congregation against them unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. Sound familiar? This just happened in chapter 15. Everybody gathered together against Moses and Aaron, and they were going to stone them and choose a new leader and go back to Egypt. Remember? Just a chapter ago. And God said, I'm going to kill them all. Remember? And Moses said, no, Lord. God's always looking for someone to stand in the gap. Moses said no, and God was gracious. So here they are again. Korah brings the whole congregation. They were all there before, just a short time before. Here they are again in the same place. And guess what happened? Just like the last time. And the glory of the Lord appeared unto all the congregation. Boom, here it comes. I picture it like that, like a palpable force. Fire, smoke, pressure, knocks you to the ground. That's what I imagine. Doesn't say that, but that's what I imagine. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron. Remember when the glory of the Lord appeared on the mountain when Moses went up there to get the tablets of the law? And the people were like, we don't want to be here. You go deal with that, Moses. We're going to go hide in our tents. That's the glory of the Lord. It's scary. So here it is right there. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying, separate yourselves from among this congregation. Put some distance, that I may consume them in a moment. And they, that is Moses and Aaron, fell on their faces and said, O God, the God of the spirits of all flesh, shall one man sin, and wilt thou be wroth with all the congregation? What do you see Moses doing again? Standing in the gap. Standing in the gap. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak ye unto the congregation. All right. You go talk to them. Speak ye unto the congregation, saying, get you up from about the tabernacle of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. He says, put some space between you and these ringleaders and their stuff. Get away from them. And Moses rose up and went unto Dathan and Abiram, and the elders of Israel followed him. And he spake unto the congregation, saying, depart, I pray you, from the tents of these wicked men, and touch nothing of theirs, lest ye be consumed in all their sins. So they got up, that's the congregation, got up from the tabernacle of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram on every side. And Dathan and Abiram came out and stood in the door of their tents. So up to this point, they were hiding in their tents, chickens. And so they came out and they were standing in the doors of their tents, and their wives, and their sons, and their little children. And Moses said, hereby ye shall know that the Lord hath sent me to do all these works. I didn't choose myself. I didn't lift myself up. Here's a sign to prove it. Here's how you're going to know. He says, if these men die the common death of all men, or if they be visited after the visitation of all men, if they die like everybody dies, okay, then the Lord hath not sent me. I'm a false prophet. But if the Lord make a new thing, so here's what I think. God didn't say this to Moses. Moses is speaking extemporaneously. He's saying, all right, here's what we're going to do. This is going to prove it once and for all. If they just drop dead, then I'm a false prophet. Don't follow me anymore. But I'm just going to make something up, okay? God's going to do some new thing. What is it? If God do a new thing, and the earth open her mouth and swallow them up with all their stuff, and they go down quick into the pit, then ye shall understand that these men have provoked the Lord. And it came to pass, as he had made an end of speaking, as soon as he finished his sentence, this is a man who has power with God. As soon as he stopped talking, that the ground clave asunder that was under them, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up, and their houses, and all the men that appertained unto Korah, and all their goods. They and all that appertained to them went down alive into the pit, and the earth closed upon them, and they perished from among the congregation. And listen to this. And all Israel that were round about them fled at the cry of them. So I guess they screamed when the earth opened up and they fell into a pit. I'm guessing this is the pit that God's going to throw Satan into. He says, the pit. like there's only one. So maybe they're still falling today. I don't know. But they screamed, and they perished, and everybody else said, "Ah!" And they screamed, and they ran. For they said, "Lest the earth swallow us up also." That seems reasonable, given the circumstances. I think that was one of the wisest things this congregation has done heretofore. And there came, listen, so now we know they're not still falling. Okay, I forgot this part. And there came out a fire from the Lord and consumed the 250 men that offered incense. Oh, no. Okay, the pit was for Korah and Dathan and Abiram and their stuff and their families. The fire was for the 250 men who followed them. Okay? So, all the ringleaders, all princes, all men of renown, all dead. All dead. And you know why? Because Moses said, "Don't listen to their prayer, Lord." Oh, and he said, "Open up the ground and swallow them up." Rebellion is the enemy of your victory because it evokes judgment, listen, from the God who redeemed you. This wasn't God's desire. This isn't what God wanted for Korah and Dathan and Abiram and their families and the 250 men. Princes, men of renown. This isn't what he wanted for them. What did he want for them? A few days before, they should have been going into the land. They should have been experiencing God's blessing. That's what he wanted for them. Why would he have bothered doing the numbering, the counting at the beginning of this book of the Bible, if that wasn't his plan? It was because of their rebellion and their unwillingness to obey and their unwillingness to follow God's leadership in their lives that they ended up in this place of judgment and wrath. Rebellion is a wickedness that stokes the fire of God's wrath like almost no other sin. Remember what it said there in 1 Samuel? Rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. God doesn't think very highly of witchcraft, by the way. There's no such thing as white witches in God's book. If you're practicing some other form of spirituality, and if you're worshiping anything but Him, He doesn't think fondly of that. And He says rebellion is just as bad. It stokes a fire in Him. And do not think to yourself, do not tell yourself and sell yourself this false narrative. Do not think that your rebellion will go unnoticed by the Lord. He knows what's in your heart. He knows what's in your mind. And He knows about that enemy within you. So you need to be aware of it. Don't rationalize it. Don't keep it like a pet and bring it out and play with it when it's convenient. Dispel it from your life. We think that we're going to get away with it. We think that God's not going to do anything. And we think that, as the Word of God tells us in Ecclesiastes chapter 8, it says that because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the hearts of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. Well, nothing happened. I didn't get struck by lightning. Young people, you have a wicked, rebellious heart toward your parents. Maybe you don't say it out loud, but you say it with your countenance. Or maybe you did. You came out and you gave them a piece of your mind. And for just a second, you felt powerful and you felt good. That rebellion, it's like it was your friend, right? It gave you power. I said those words and I hurt them. I could see it on their face. I hurt them. Whew. And then a few seconds later, it doesn't feel so good anymore, does it? Maybe because you made your mom cry. I did that once. Maybe more than once, but I only saw it once. Or maybe because they struck back verbally. Right? Because remember, rebellion creates conflict even with those who love you most. It's not power. It's not your friend. That rebellion that's inside you is your enemy. And it evokes God's judgment. Judgment may not come today. Judgment may not come tomorrow. But don't think that God didn't notice your rebellion. He did. Rebellion is the enemy of victory in your life because it creates conflict, because it evokes judgment. And then finally, number 3, rebellion is the enemy of your victory. And this sounds kind of funny. Don't snicker, okay? Because it encourages copycats toward the same ugly aftermath. Rebellion is one of the great influencers in our world. Let's read the last portion of our passage, starting in verse 36. It says, "And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, that he take up the censers out of the burning." What burning? Remember there were 250 men holding censers, burning incense? And then God, like a fireball, now it's just ash. And then they're brazen censers. They're made of brass. He says, tell Aaron's son to go get the brass, okay? And he says, scatter the fire yonder, for they are hallowed. Okay, the ashes, the remnants of these men, they were priests, or they were the Levites. So he says, take it out to a place that is a clean place and scatter it there like you would a sacrifice. He says, the censers of these sinners against their own souls, let them make them broad plates for a covering of the altar. For they offered them before the Lord. Therefore they are hallowed. And they shall be a sign unto the children of Israel. So he's going to take these 250 brazen censers. It was just a small thing that they were able to hold in their hand. And they would have put a little fire in there and then put the incense in there. They're going to melt down the brass from these censers. And they're going to make a big plate. A big brazen plate. That's a lid to go over top of the altar. Okay, that's what they're going to do with it. And Eleazar the priest took the brazen censers wherewith they were burnt, had offered, and they were made broad plates for a covering of the altar. But why? Why did he have them do this? Verse 40. To be a memorial unto the children of Israel, that no stranger, which is not of the seed of Aaron, come near to offer incense before the Lord. Memorial what? God chose Aaron. And God chose his offspring. And nobody else gets to make offerings to the Lord. Kind of like Jesus. Their type of Jesus. Okay? Nobody else gets to make a sacrifice. Nobody else gets to bring an offering before the Lord. That he be not as Korah and as his company, as the Lord hath said to him, as the Lord said to him by the hand of Moses. Okay, so God says, I want you to make these plates into a cover for the altar. Why? So that every time people come and give an offering to the Lord and they see one of Aaron or one of his offspring making the offering and they see the plate, they remember, don't be like Korah. Don't be like the men who followed Korah. Follow God's leadership. Follow God's man. Don't let this enemy who resides within all of us peek up his ugly head. Keep him down. Now, why did God do that? Because he understands that we all have a copycat tendency. We do. It's funny because sometimes I have 4 little girls. There are 4 littles. We call them littles, but there's two smallest ones. We will often tell one of the smaller ones, don't do that. Like, don't bang your cup on the table. And guess what the other little one does? I just told the one little one, don't bang your cup on the table. So then the other little one says, bang, 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 bang. And I look at him like, what? What are you doing? I just told her not to do that. That doesn't mean, hey, I don't want her to do it. I really want you to do it. I like the way you bang your cup better than the way she bangs her cup. That's not what I'm saying. Right? But we have this tendency in us. When we see someone else exercising rebellion, guess what it evokes in us? A desire to do the same. When we see someone else act in rebellion against their God-given authorities, we say, I can do that too. I can be a rebel. and we follow their example. So God said, make a memorial to encourage them not to follow their natural tendency. And then we see, if we continue to read, that God's reasoning was well justified. But on the morrow, verse 31, all the congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses. Here we go again. And against Aaron. It's the next day. Yesterday, God opened up the ground and swallowed up 3 families. Yesterday, God shot a fireball out of the heavens and burned up 250 men all in one go. Yesterday, God clearly said, this is my man, follow him. Today, well, that was yesterday. Maybe God changed his mind. Today, they begin murmuring against Moses, against Aaron. And what do they say? Ye have killed the people of the Lord. These men were so godly, and these men were so spiritual. And, you know, Korah was a great preacher. He's a much better preacher than Moses. Moses, it's like he's whispering the whole time. I can't even hear what he's saying. You killed God's people. How dare you? They say. First of all, Moses and Aaron just stood there. God did it. And yet they're murmuring against Moses and Aaron. That's because they're cowards. And they don't want to talk that way against God, so they talk that way against God's man instead. And it came to pass when the congregation was gathered against Moses and against Aaron, they got a mob together again, that they looked toward the tabernacle of the congregation, and behold, the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord appeared. This is when you turn around and run. If you can learn your lesson at all. And Moses and Aaron came before the tabernacle of the congregation. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Get you up from among this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment. And they fell. And what did Moses and Aaron do? Go for it, God. I'm telling you, I'd been like, woo, get them. It's like, am I sure I want him as my pastor? No, that's not what they did. And they fell on their faces. He said, no, not so, Lord. One more time. Be gracious. Be merciful. Moses said unto Aaron, so here's what happens. I'm going to read it for you in a second. God didn't wait for their permission to start giving them consequences for what they've done. He sent a plague that started. Here's what happened. I don't know what the plague was. It doesn't say. But something happened, and it was visible. And they started dropping like flies. Like, I think, imagine it like this. There's this tent, there's this tabernacle, and all of the tents of the people gather, and all the people have come out. There's space between the tents and the tabernacle, but so the mob has gathered, probably not the whole congregation, but as many as could fit. And they're standing there, and they're, I assume, getting ready to stone Moses and Aaron again, like they've done in the past, and Moses and Aaron are pleading with them and all these things. And I imagine it as from the point where Moses and Aaron were standing, almost like a wave, there was some kind of illness that started striking them, and they began to fall dead from something. And Moses, I imagine, you have to infer, Moses looks up and he sees the people. Perhaps their skin is changing. It's pallor. Maybe they're becoming pallid. Their color is draining and whatever, and they begin to just fall to the ground dead. And Moses sees this, and he says unto Aaron, he cries out, he says, take a censer and put fire therein from off the altar and put on incense and go quickly unto the congregation and make an atonement for them, for there is wrath gone out from the Lord. The plague is begun. They thought they had time like usual to ask God for grace, but God didn't give them time this time. And so Moses says, Aaron, do something. And Aaron took as Moses commanded, and listen to this, and ran into the midst of the congregation. Think about this like the firefighters and the police running into the buildings on 9/11. Everybody else is running out, and they're running in. Think about the doctors and nurses during pandemics who keep going to work when everybody else is afraid to. Right? Aaron doesn't know what this is. Something is happening and they're all falling dead. Aaron, it would be like the preacher grabbing his Bible and saying, "Here I come!" And here's what he did. He ran. Literally, it's like the plague is spreading like a wave among the congregation. They could all be dead in minutes. Okay? It's spreading like a wave. So Aaron sprints to the edge of the plague, and he finds where there's healthy people, and he turns around and he offers the incense before the Lord. It's like, "You shall not pass." Listen to what it says. And Aaron took, as Moses commanded, and ran into the midst of the congregation. And behold, the plague was begun among the people. And he put on incense and made an atonement for the people. And he stood between the dead and the living. And the plague was stayed. It stopped. There's a wave of death. Aaron runs till he gets to the healthy people, and he turns around and he offers the incense as an offering of atonement for the people, and the death stopped. It must have been visible because they could know it stopped. Now, listen to this. They that died in the plague were 14,700 people died in those few moments it took Aaron to get the censer, to make the atonement, and to stand in the gap for God's people. Beside them that died about the matter of Korah. And Aaron returned unto Moses unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and the plague was stayed. Rebellion is an enemy of your victory because it encourages copycats who will end up in the same ugly aftermath. You're not an island. You understand that? Your life, your decisions will affect the people around you. And this is especially true when it comes to your rebellion. When you rebel against your God-given authorities, you will inspire rebellion in those around you, even after you've faced the terrible consequences. This is after. This is the next day. And these people still followed Korah's example. When we live lives of rebellion, the long-lasting consequences, we don't know how far they'll go. You don't know how far-reaching your rebellion will be. So understand, rebellion is not your friend. So I have another example of this, but I think it's pretty graphic just in the text itself. So we're going to close by saying this once again. Rebellion is an enemy of victory in your life. As you count the cost, remember at the beginning of the message, I asked you to seriously ask yourself the question, what price am I willing to pay? Remember this, rebellion is not your friend. Rebellion is the enemy of your victory. Whatever price God will ask you to pay, don't let that price be wasted. Don't let rebellion take over your life. Because it creates conflict, because it evokes judgment, and because it encourages copycats. Follow leaders, God-given leaders. Submit to God-given authority. Don't live in rebellion.